Hi everybody, this is my final project for ICT Analytics. So we're going to be taking a look at the Google Merchandise Store. So what is the Google Merchandise Store? We probably all already know this. It's a store operated by Google that sells a variety of products that include things such as socks, pens, shirts, sweatshirts. There's a whole bunch of more products on there. I saw some coffee cups. You can get some desk items. On top of that, they also offer all of these in brands. So they can throw a YouTube logo on it, an Android logo on it. Obviously, the Google logo, they can put that on there as well. So what are the goals of the Google Merchandise Store? First and foremost, they want to make a profit. They are selling these products so that they can make a profit and they can make more money. Second goal is to spread awareness. By offering their logo on these products, they are spreading their name and making people more aware of it. To build off of that, they're also building a brand recognition that is, in a way, advertising that the customer is paying for. When someone sees a Google, Android, or YouTube logo, they're being exposed to that brand. So a little bit about the users. We were asked to write a little bit about what our initial thoughts were on these users. I thought that a majority of them over the course of a week would be women in their early 20s and 30s. After looking at this graph, I was actually completely wrong. So this graph ranges from October 20th to the 27th. Surprisingly, men were the primary audience. So over the almost 5,500 visits, there were 3,483 that were men. So basically the data was exactly the opposite of what I expected. So that was very interesting. Now I'm going to get into the key performance indicators. So the ones that I chose to use were converters, new users, returning users, sessions with transactions, and the bounce rate. So I'm going to dive right into it. I have this converters graph right here. A little bit about it. If you look at the very beginning, which is kind of surprising to me, the sessions peaked at 22, around 22, I should say, on October 21st and 22nd. And then as we got farther into the month, it tapered off, and by October 25th, it was down to less than 10 converters. November 2nd was probably the lowest point in the graph. November 2nd with the October 26th were probably at 0, if not 1 or 2. So, and then at the very end of the month, it spiked up to 15 converters. Next, we're going to talk about new users. So, a couple key points to hit. This is one of the higher points in the month. On the 22nd, we had about 100 new users. By October 25th, it dropped down to about 50-ish users, and then we had a slight increase and decrease all the way up until November 15th. Right when November 16th hit, the users spiked up to an all-time high for the month of 120 about. So that's the new users. Next, I'm going to go into returning users. So pardon the new in there. This is returning users though. So at the beginning of the month, there were about 25 to 30 returning users to the website, and following a common trend with the other two or three graphs I've shown you so far, we hit a peak at the beginning of the month of 50 returning users. So the number of users dropped and stayed below 15 users a day for the rest of the month after this huge point right here on the graph, and this basically stayed below 15 at that point. So sessions with transactions, I was really skeptical about this data at first because I found it hard to believe that only 3 days of the month there were sessions with transactions. I think that might be there might be a problem with how their analytics is counting that data. But basically, there were no transactions except for on the 14th through the 16th, where there was only one transaction a day. So over the course of the month, there was actually only 3 transactions. And I think I just can't see there only being 3 for the whole month. That just doesn't make sense to me. So that's really sessions with transactions. Next, we'll move on to the bounce rate, and this is the final one. So the bounce sessions are sitting around 60 at the beginning of the month. We can kind of see that. That was probably our second highest point in the whole, out of the whole month. So you can see a steady decrease from the 21st to the 27th of November, or of October, my apologies. Yeah, 21st to the 27th. Steady decrease from the 21st to the 27th of October, so it kind of goes downward. There's a sharp, it kind of goes up and down a little bit throughout the whole month, and then really our next milestone is just the, there's a sharp decrease on the 16th of November, and then it falls back down. So some of the insights that I developed, I was kind of doing some outside research to determine why a lot of these were being higher on certain, or why there were peaks and valleys and why they were occurring on the certain dates. So some things that I found when I did some outside research was that like 2 weeks prior to my data range, Google announced its Pixel smartphone. So that may have affected how users were, maybe it took the spotlight away from the merchandise store and users were looking elsewhere for things such as the Pixel smartphone. Halloween was going on during this time. That may have had an impact, leading to less traffic. And then, of course, I might say that weekends may have influenced a turnout of visits to the website. People may be more or less active. I think you could argue it both ways. So I think those are some impacts on why some of these results came out the way they did. So my recommendations. So my first recommendation is to offer some of their tech products on the Google Merchandise Store. So offering things such as like their smartphones, their computers, other stuff that they produce, I think would be awesome to have on there. It would entice people to visit the website more often and buy. So you could increase your conversion rate by doing something like that. My second recommendation was to consider redesigning the website to make it more user-friendly. I'm not saying that it isn't user-friendly. In fact, I think it is very well done. However, I think there's always room for improvement, and by doing this, they could drop the bounce rate lower than it already is. And then step 3, or my third recommendation, I should say, would be to check out the transaction statistic, the sessions with transaction statistic in Google Analytics to ensure accuracy. As I mentioned before, I was really skeptical of that, and the fact that there was only 3 transactions that occurred throughout the whole month, I find that really hard to believe. And that's basically the end of my presentation.